And Fran said this is a follow-up question. If a landlord works with Section 8 residents, will HUD require Spanish leases? Will HUD require Spanish leases this year?
This year.
That's an interesting question, because we just recently received regulations that will involve an executive order which we call limited English proficiency. There's a lot of things come into play in terms of this, in terms of Spanish leases. What is going to be the need? So there's a number of, believe me, tonight I don't have time to go into the calculation now whether or not it will be required. This is something that we'll be working with the local housing authorities to determine whether or not it's something that's necessary for their locale, like Fort Worth Housing Authority or Dallas Housing Authority, since those are the persons that will be, administering these voucher programs. So that's something that will be going more into this in this coming year.
And one quickly, there are a lot of people who are just upset with bilingual education. They don't like the idea. They think that if you have bilingual education, you're perpetuating the problem. And did I hear you say how many thousand are in from pre-kindergarten to third grade? Why do we have bilingual education, number one? Number two, if people are here, is it better they're educated or not?
Let me set the record straight about bilingual education. It was at one time an issue that was driven by educational modifications. It was used and developed to try to help children to get a handle on English, and I'm sure it has been pounded on by English-only proponents. But it's not an issue today that has caught the eye of educators. It actually is now slowly becoming a dual language effort. And that's because in our nation we're beginning to find out, and there's a lot of people who want their children to have more than one language. And it's becoming a very, so bilingual education is not the way it was, the way we defined it back in the 70s and 80s. Although it was an innovator, it created a lot of unique programs and a lot of unique educational modifications to learning and achieving. It's changed now, Roy, and you'll find language proponents referring to dual language in many venues, and in fact, not to say this, but the language of choice now that's becoming very, very popular is Japanese, and that language and Chinese, because of the driving business markets and the driving markets, globally. And so that's it. That face is changing real quickly, and so you really can't say that we label them bilingual children, but we're slowly moving to more of a dual language learning process. We do have several ways that we handle our children in terms of single language or other than English language, and we've done a good job on that. Our newcomer academies, our language labs, we're very set on trying to handle that problem, and that is growing. It's growing bigger and bigger.
This audience member says Dallas ISD started to require some principals or staff to speak Spanish. What % of Vietnamese students should require Vietnamese by principals? Dallas said that depending on the size of the school or the percentage of the Hispanics enrolled in the school, they should be Spanish-speaking principals. I think they backed up on that a little bit because they didn't have enough principals. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Mr. Educator over here, make sure everybody says, hey, you do that one.
It's a laughable question.
Well, number one, I'm glad I don't live in Dallas.
So am I, actually.
Number two, I think that, when you try to saddle a requirement for, I'd say, a diverse professional with a language, I think that's sending out a very negative type of signal. I believe an educator is an educator. And I believe that if you're gifted as far as education, you may know 2 or 3 languages. If you're fortunate that you have a cultural background of diversity and maybe you come from different culture and you've learned and you've achieved, I think that's excellent as well. I think diversity does allow you to have a greater grasp on languages and cultures and what have you. But I don't think you need to make it a requirement to hire somebody. I think that's very, very unfair.
Civilized things been said.
And Bud, speaking of Harry, I want you to echo on this, because Bud said something in his opening remarks